Logan Webb broke out last year with a 3.03 ERA and peripherals that suggest more of the same to come in 2022. But the interesting thing is that the majority of his success came after he was placed on the IL with a shoulder injury that kept him out for about 2 months. And his return from that injury on July 9th came about 2 weeks after the league cracked down on the use of illegal substances like spider tags, pine tar, sticky, etc. And the general idea I think we've been told is that sticky, when you take it away from a pitcher, actually decreases his ability to succeed on the mound. When in reality, I'd posit the opposite is true with Logan Webb. When he stopped using sticky, he actually got better. And I think that segues really well into a lesson about how spin rate, which is heavily influenced by sticky substances like spider tag, influences each pitch in a different way. So let's dig into why Logan Webb should have stopped using sticky well before the league cracked down on it. The first thing that we need to acknowledge is that Webb's using some kind of added substance to the ball. We can show that his spin rate drop lines up with the time window that aligns with the league's sticky crackdown, so to speak. And there's video evidence of Webb going to the inner part of his glove and then immediately to the ball between pitches. And let me be clear, I don't really care that he was doing this at all, mainly because substantially higher profile pitchers were too. Gerrit Cole, Yu Darvish, Shane Bieber, the list goes on and on. The league's problem was that everyone was using it, not that a couple pitchers were using it. So to me, what matters the most is that it presents a learning opportunity to help us better understand what influences pitch movement. At the end of the day, I want to make us smarter in how we consume baseball content. So Webb stops using sticky and his sinker gets better. The question is how? Well, simply put, the pitch started dropping more. In April and May, the pitch had about 2 inches of vertical movement, and come August, it had -1 inch of vertical movement. So the pitch started dropping about 3 inches more than it had in the past. And the reason this matters for sinkers is that even if you're throwing a sinker from a low slot, you're probably applying a little bit of backspin to the ball. What do I mean by backspin? Backspin, think of a four-seam fastball. Think of that Gerrit Cole fastball that kind of takes off, has a little bit of rise up in the zone. The direction of that spin is to some extent almost perfectly upward, such that it's resisting the force of gravity. And there's a relationship between the amount of spin on the ball and the amount of force applied and the direction of that spin. So the more, in theory, you spin the ball, the more force you're applying to resist that force of gravity pulling it downward. So think about Logan Webb throwing from definitely a different slot, different direction, so to speak, than a Gerrit Cole fastball with his sinker. He's throwing it probably somewhere like this, right on the tracks on the two seams. And the direction of that spin is probably a little bit above parallel to the ground. It's ever so slightly up that way. He's not applying as much force. He's not applying as much backspin as the Gerrit Cole fastball, but he is applying a little bit of backspin. So if you were to drop the rate at which he's spinning that ball, there would be less of a force created resisting gravity, and therefore the pitch would drop more. So by Webb removing sticky from his fingers, he dropped his spin rate, he dropped his subsequent force created by that little bit of backspin he has from his sinker, and the pitch started dropping more. The other odd thing with the Webb sinker is that he's now getting negative vertical movement on the pitch. And what does that mean? In the land of short form movement, which is the common language spoken between coaches and pitchers to refer to the shapes of pitches, a pitch with 0 inches of vertical movement is a pitch with no backspin or topspin. It's essentially a football, if you think of how football spins, or a bullet being fired out of a rifle. It's a pitch that's spun like this, circularly, where there's no backspin or topspin. And the cool thing about this is you kind of get to almost any kind of pitch movement from here. So if you think of our bullet spun slider with 0 inches of vertical movement, if we start to apply backspin to that pitch, it means our hand's getting behind the ball. And we start to rotate it such that the direction of that spin is going up, which gets into our Gerrit Cole fastball territory. Again, take that bullet spun slider and maybe start to apply some topspin to the ball where you're turning it over this way and you're spinning it down. What you're doing is you're getting into slider and curveball territory. Change up territory is the same thing. You're starting to turn that ball over and apply a little bit of topspin in a different direction such that pitch is going either laterally or a little bit downward. Our Logan Webb sinker, the same thing. Take our bullet spun slider right here, and our Logan Webb pitches here, where there's a little bit of that backspin this way, just ever so slightly above that 0 inches of vertical movement point. If Webb crossed over from positive vertical movement to negative vertical movement, you would suspect that he went from adding some backspin to adding some topspin, which we should be able to see in a close-up on his pitch release, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case. What we see instead is no real difference in the kind of force I think he's applying to the ball between 2020 and 2021, or even between April 2021 and August 2021. There's just a slight arm slot change, which I'll touch on later, but no principal difference in how he's orienting the ball or throwing that sinker. So what gives? How is Logan Webb able to achieve negative vertical movement without actually applying any topspin to the ball? And I think the answer to that question lies in seam shifted wake, or as I've kind of referred to it a couple times on my channel, seam effects. And we talked about this in a video on Blake Treinen, which I'll link to above. But the general idea here is that out of the hand, we can literally measure that, as we've talked about, Logan Webb is spinning his sinker kind of like that, with a little bit of backspin to the ball in that direction. But based on the resulting movement profile of the pitch, based on how that ball actually moves during flight and hits the catcher's glove, only way he's able to achieve the resulting movement profile would be with an axis that is different than the one he released it with. And that axis, we can kind of tell based on the resulting movement profile, is more like that. It's with a spin direction going downward, which gets into that negative vertical movement territory to some extent. So we can kind of piece this all together and see that something is occurring during ball flight that is changing his spin axis, the spin direction, from that slight backspin to some topspin to allow him to unlock that negative vertical movement. And as to what is causing that, it's most likely the seams. And in Webb's case, there had to have been something maybe going on with the actual grip he was using, the interaction between that and the ball that maybe took away potentially some of these seam effects. Because now he's in a territory of sinker move that he's never been in. And that's kind of the beauty of seam shifted wake or seam effects in a way, is that you're actually able to achieve movement profiles you otherwise wouldn't be able to achieve based on how you're releasing the ball, simply because of how the seams interact with the air around the ball, moving it kind of in these unexpected directions. And for Webb, that unexpected direction is downward. It's that added drop we talked about. I kept the meat of this video pretty simple, or at least I hope I kept it pretty simple. Logan Webb stopped using sticky and added more drop to his sinker. It also added more seam effects to his ball, which potentially added even more drop to his sinker. The result was a much better pitch. It's kind of it. But I think I want to toss on one more layer to this idea of pitch movement, et cetera, et cetera. And it relates to Logan Webb lowering his arm slot between 2020 and 2021. He lowered his arm slot by 3 inches. So he went from throwing kind of like that to a little bit further downward, such that he's almost now fully sidearm, throwing that pitch fully sidearm, throwing all his pitches fully sidearm. And this gets back to another way you can influence sinker movement, and it relates to lowering your arm slot. And it's not as simple as that to some extent, but I kind of want to talk you through the spectrum here, at least as I understand the spectrum. And it jumps back to Gerrit Cole's four-seam fastball at first. So straight over the top, okay? We think about that Gerrit Cole fastball and the direction of that spin straight upward, such that he's creating a force to perfectly counteract the force of gravity, pushing it down to give it a little bit of that rise effect. And think of the spectrum. You're thinking of the spectrum as a right-handed pitcher. If you're Gerrit Cole throwing that four-seam fastball to get it to rise up, okay, and that direction of spin is perfectly this way. You'll see my fingers kind of that direction of spin. As you tilt your arm downward and go towards more of a sidearm slot, the direction at which you're opposing that force of gravity coming downward kind of changes, such that it's not in direct opposition. It's not perfectly resistant, so gravity has more of an effect to push the pitch downward. So if you're here and you lower your arm slot here and you hold everything else constant, the reality is that gravity is going to have more effect on that ball downward, which is going to make it drop more. And that's literally it. That's kind of all I want to point out here, is that concept of just lowering your arm slot, keeping everything else constant in terms of how you're throwing the ball, which again is almost kind of impossible. But it's just to illustrate the point that, you know, most over-the-top guys are inclined to throw four-seam fastballs. Why is that? Because their direction of the spin that they naturally can achieve on their ball is perfectly in opposition to the force of gravity, such that it gets that little bit of rise, and that rise is really effective up in the zone. Whereas if you're throwing sidearm, it's really hard to create an opposing force to gravity to push upward, right? If you're throwing like this, you'd have to tilt your arm all the way this way and get that spin direction going this way to apply backspin to go perfectly up. That's Josh Hader. That's why Josh Hader is such an anomaly, is that he's able to do that. He's able to throw full sidearm but create a spin direction that is forcing perfectly against gravity to some extent to kind of get rise from a really low slot. But that's kind of the general principle. This might be something you pick up to watching games. You'll probably see that a lot of sidearm guys are probably throwing balls with more sink, more movement, more run, more drop, because of how their hand is going to naturally flow against the ball, and because of how that spin direction is going to oppose the force of gravity. So that's kind of the general concept there. It's just something to layer on top of how many variables go into pitching and how many variables could go into how you want to adjust movement on a pitch to get a pitcher into an area of movement that you think could perhaps make him a little bit more effective. And again, this all wraps around Logan Webb. I know he's talked about the arm slot change as something that's influenced things, and I also understand that he's not going to talk about using sticky and how that could have influenced the ball. So we're on the public side kind of only limited to, arm slot change, that is what results. When there's, again, as I went through this video, I think a lot of very interesting elements of what also changed around his ball to create more drop and make that sinker really good. Again, I don't blame them all for not talking about that. No one's going to admit in the league that they were using any substance of any kind. We got video proof of it, totally fine. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to kind of layer it on top of what the player has and kind of make people smarter about how they think about the game, specifically in Logan Webb's case about sinker movement and pitch movement. So I hope you learned something.